Today is January 21st, Tuesday, and you should have already grabbed your vocabulary 18. You should have completed that. You have that ready for tomorrow because tomorrow is Wednesday, and you'll turn that in, and Mrs. Basham will check that for you. So be sure you have that complete. If you don't have it completed already, come during tutorials tomorrow, or you can look up the words on your phone tonight and complete it that way. So today what we are doing is we are reading this story, and you should all have a copy of it, called The Flu Vaccine. So be sure all of you have a copy of your paper. All of you have a writing utensil. All of you have a highlighter. And all of you have this checklist, this bookmark checklist. Okay, so if you don't have those things, go ahead and get up and grab those really quickly. We are going to go over a few of the things to refresh your memory on this bookmark. We have our big questions. These are just big ideas that we have as we're reading along. We're thinking about these things. What does it make you think of? What surprises you about it? And then contrasts and contradictions, where if the story tells both sides of an issue, then you're going to make note of that by writing CC next to it. Extreme or absolute language. Anything that says this will happen, it has some, why did the author use this language? All, none, always, never, totally, we must, all agree, everyone on earth, any of those absolute language words. The next is numbers and stats, and we're going to have a lot of that in the article that we're reading today. So you're going to highlight it, and you're going to put the little number sign next to it whenever you see it. Next thing is quoted words, and we have a few of those in today's article. And the next one is word gap. So any words that you're not really sure you know what they mean, maybe they're a little bit new to you, and you can look up the context and see if you can figure it out based on the context, or you may have to get a dictionary and look up that word in the dictionary and jot down the definition of it right next to the line that that word is located in. Also remember our signal words that we've already learned that will show you if it's a cause and effect informational text, if it's a comparison, if it's contrasting, if it is just a main idea, if it is a definition and restatement, or if it's a sequence or chronology. The one today is going to be a main idea. So we're going to be looking for some of these signal words, some of the things that show us that it is a main idea, informational text. So let's go ahead, and everybody has your article now. Everybody has a writing utensil, everybody has a highlighter, and everybody has one of these yellow sheets. So we're going to go ahead and start off with our article, and I'm going to flip the camera around to do this so we can go through and mark it together as we read it. So, I may have to hold it. Okay. I think that is that it. Okay, I don't know if that'll work. So I'm just gonna hold it here, and I will kind of hold it up and show you what I'm marking as I go along and as I read it. We'll do it that way because I thought I could flip my camera, but I can't figure out how to flip my camera. So we're just gonna do it this way. So everybody get ready. We're going to read it together. Remember, we read the entire page. Everything on it is important information. The flu vaccine, everything you need to know. The source is theweek.com. It was published on October 26, 2019. Getting a flu shot is a seasonal right. But why do you need one every year? And why doesn't it always work? Here's everything you need to know. So that already tells us it's a main idea. It's going to tell us everything about it, all the details about it. So how does the vaccine work? The flu vaccine contains inactive or weakened versions of 3 or 4 different strains of the influenza virus. Most people receive the vaccine via injection, but there's also a nasal spray available. The weakened viruses can't cause serious illness, but they trigger and train the immune system to fight off the invading microorganisms. So you might know that word from biology. or from another science class. You may not, so that might be one that you highlight and you put your star next to it. White blood cells generate an army of antibodies, which attack and destroy the vaccine viruses by attaching themselves to part of the virus known as antigens. That might be another one that you highlight and that you put the little star next to for word. The vaccine antigens have the same shape as real flu antigens, so the immune system now has antibodies that match up with the real flu virus. That experience teaches the immune system to recognize future flu infections and quickly make antibodies to attack the invading viruses. It takes about 2 weeks after receiving the vaccine to develop immunity, which is why doctors recommend getting it early in the flu season, which begins in October and can last as late as May. Do most people get vaccinated? No, although the U.S. has one of the highest vaccination rates in the world, only 45% of adults and 63% of children get flu shots each year. Scientists estimate that if the vaccination rates were boosted to between 80 to 90%, it could effectively stop seasonal flu from spreading because of herd immunity. So there's lots of numbers in there. Be sure that you mark your numbers. Effectively stop, that could be some of the extreme and absolute language, so you might mark that and put an L next to it. Herd immunity. Immunity can be some of that absolute loaded language, so put that L next to that. But also, you might want to star that one. What does that mean, herd immunity? Influenza is one of the most contagious diseases, spreading easily through the air and by touch. It affects between 5 to 15% of the world's population every year. The disease kills 12,000 Americans during mild flu season and up to 56,000 in severe ones, with 90% of the victims over 65 years old. Many people don't get vaccinated, however, either because they fear getting the shot or believe it isn't effective. That word fear, that can be some extreme and absolute language. So anything that has emotional ties to it can fall into that category. So be sure to mark that. Also, many people don't get vaccinated. All of those things is that extreme or absolute language. So you might catch a few other things in what I'm marking and what I've said, but go ahead and mark it and be sure you mark all of the numbers that are in that paragraph. I'll also mark the line that said effectively stop seasonal flu from spreading because of herd immunity. I marked that as a big question because that surprised me that they really think that they could get rid of flu. So this is what my paper looks like so far. So that's kind of where I'm at so far. Okay. Yours should look similar or more than what I have. The vaccine's effectiveness varies dramatically depending on how well it matches the viruses circulating in a given season. In good years, the vaccine protects 50 to 70% of the people receiving it, but some strains are more difficult to create vaccines for, such as the H3N2 type, which raged during the severe 2017 flu season. That year's vaccine was found to be only 40% effective overall. Nevertheless, doctors recommend getting the shot anyway because even some immunity helps slow the spread of the disease. Vaccination also can make symptoms of any flu infection less severe. Even if it doesn't completely prevent illness, we do have something that works, said Peter Police, a virologist at the Alcom School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York. It's not perfect, but it's better than not having any vaccination. So several of those things in there, you need to mark numbers. You need to mark that quote at the end by Peter Police. Just be sure that you highlight that and you put the little quote marks off to the side so you know that there's a quote there. Next, what makes flu so tricky? The flu virus is constantly mutating, rendering the body's antibodies against previous flu infections obsolete. Influenza is less stable than other viruses, such as chickenpox, because its main genetic material is RNA. The virus makes many small errors when it copies its genetic code during reproduction. Every generation of the flu virus has a slightly different genetic structure, which is harder for the immune system's existing antibodies to recognize. This process is known as antigenic drift. Mark that as one of those words that you may not know. Scientists have a guess which influenza strains will be more prevalent well before flu season starts to give pharmaceutical companies time to manufacture enough of the vaccine. The process hasn't changed much since the first flu vaccines were given to American soldiers in 1945. Over 90% of flu vaccines are incubated in fertilized chicken eggs because the virus grows extremely well in them. This technique is relatively cheap, but protection is cumbersome and time-consuming, taking about 6 months. The World Health Organization issues predictions for the Northern Hemisphere flu season in February based on observational data and laboratory studies, with pharmaceutical companies beginning production almost immediately. Process requires about 900,000 chicken eggs per day. Given the 6-month time lag, it's all but impossible to swiftly order up vast new batches of vaccine in case an unexpected strain emerges, which is what happened in the 2009-10 flu season with the H1N1 virus, better known as swine flu. The virus infected an estimated 61 million people in the U.S., killing 12,000. So take a minute, go back through, mark your numbers on that one. Mark some of the words. That one had words like cumbersome, pharmaceutical, things like that. So mark those things that you aren't really sure about. And I thought that was an interesting paragraph. So I also put next to mine that exclamation question mark because I thought that was really interesting how many eggs they use, and that I didn't know that they used the eggs to incubate it. I thought that was really interesting thing, and why that explains why they can't just change the flu vaccine like that it really takes a long process, about 6 months. That is not your bell to leave. That's just whenever I was recording it, the bells were on. So stay seated, keep working. Are improvements possible? In theory, yes. President Trump issued an executive order in September directing the Department of Health and Human Services to create a flu vaccine task force to modernize seasonal vaccine production. However, the order does not provide any additional funding for vaccine development. Experts say it could take decades to develop the sophisticated new infrastructure needed to make vaccines in animal cells instead of eggs. Egg production is a huge bottleneck, says Martin Freed, coordinator of the Initiative for Vaccine Research at the World Health Organization. You can't just call your local egg farm and say tomorrow, I need 10 million more eggs. So there's a quote there. Be sure you mark that quote on that one. You also need to understand what it means whenever it says egg production is a huge bottleneck. It just means it can't happen like that, it's a long process. A universal flu vaccine. The holy grail of flu research is a universal vaccine that would provide lasting protection against all forms of the virus, but it remains elusive. There have been clinical trials in the past, but the National Institutes of Health beginning a new round of tests on humans this year. The hope is to train the immune system by targeting the stem of a protein on the virus, which varies little from strain to strain. However, our bodies don't generate many antibodies to target this part of the virus, instead focusing on the frequently changing head because of a process called imprinting, in which the immune system learns how to fight viruses based on the first encounter. It's difficult to teach the body new habits. I don't think we're that close at all, says Michael Osterholm, director of the University of Minnesota's Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy. I think the kind of work that's gone on has been critical and important, but it's only the first 5 feet of what would need to be a 100-foot rope. So there's another quote there, so be sure you mark that. So you should have your paper marked completely with all different really good information, highlighted, but not just random highlighting. It has to be purposeful highlighting that follows all of our notice and note. Okay, so now that you have your paper ready, now you are going to write a 1-page response. So you're going to get a piece of notebook paper, and you're only writing on the front. If it goes over onto the back, that's fine, but you must complete at least the front page. A full 1-page reflection over this article. Um, what are your thoughts on the flu vaccine? Explain, but it needs to be based on the article, what your thoughts are. And I want you to really develop the paper. Have an introduction, have your body paragraph, and have a conclusion. And you can use the expository notes page that we have, the pink paper that's laminated. You can get some of those to help you really organize your thoughts. Pick a word, line, or passage from the article and respond to that. So that's your second option. You're just going to choose one of these 3 options. Your second option is to pick one line and to just develop a paper based on that one line. What sticks out to you in that one line. And that could be some of your lines that you marked for big question. That would be a great line to pick for that response. Or your third option is to discuss a move made by the writer in this piece that you think is good, interesting, or explain. So something that the writer of this piece did that you thought was really interesting that they chose to do that. So this is literary analysis, where you're looking at the literary choices of the author and why they chose to do that. Maybe it's that they gave all of the statistics that they did, or that they said that they thought that they could create the herd immunity. That's a really interesting choice by the author that they said that. And so you're going to look at the author's choice. So those are your 3 options. You're going to pick one of those. You're going to write a full page response, and I want it to follow an introduction, a body paragraph, and conclusion. After you do that, then you're going to find a partner, and with that partner, you're going to swap papers. You're going to read each other's paper, and you're going to edit. You're looking for grammar, you're looking for organization, you're looking for thesis sentence, you're looking that it all stays on topic, that it doesn't just chase off and talk about all 3 of these things, that it talks about one, and that it's clear the one that it's talking about. So you're just going to peer edit, make changes on your own paper, but before you leave, you need to turn in your marked article stapled on top of your written paper. So the article goes on top of the written paper. Be sure your name is on it, and you're going to turn these into Mrs. Basham before you leave today. You should have plenty of time to get it all done. If you happen to not get it finished, then it is homework, and it's your responsibility to turn it in tomorrow. But you should really try to get it done during the class period. You have plenty of time to do it. So y'all get to work. Have a great day. Be sure that you finish your vocabulary so that it's ready to turn in tomorrow.